And good morning, well, good afternoon, everyone. We are back with the Renny Show. Hello, Jenny.
Hello, Rachel. How are you this fabulously grey, wet, windy day?
Yeah, the weather is a bit on the wet side, isn't it? All good other than the weather, it has to be said. Shame that it's not very exciting to be outside. Much happier staying warm inside. But really good. Still buzzing from our last episode when we had Taz Thornton in conversation with us. So yeah, raring to go, raring to go. How are you?
Yes, also buzzing. There's been quite a few kind of knock-on actions from our conversation with Taz, hasn't there? So that's
Absolutely. Yeah.
exciting. So things. I think that's Taz set a precedent for our guests is that
Yes.
we really love it when actions come out of the conversations that we have. So
Absolutely. Yeah. Definite food for thought there. We will have news coming very soon, won't we, of who our other guests are going to be. But we're talking to some very exciting people and getting them slotted in the diary to do episodes with us. So more news to come soon on that. And as always, you know us, if you're a regular listener, we're nothing if not honest. We are pre-recording this episode because on the day we will both be at the wonderful Fab Business Club face-to-face networking meeting, second birthday party celebration for the Fab network. So we're pre-recording this because we'll be having too much fun, I'm afraid, to join you live on the actual day. So we'll just pretend that it's actually Wednesday the 13th of March right now. So let's go straight into the questions then. So my first question for you, Jenny, and I will just pull it up on the screen. Oh, if it doesn't disappear, that is ego a positive or a negative thing, and why? I'm having lots of discussions around
oh,
this lately, so I'm interested to know your thoughts.
well, the first thing to say is that we all have one, don't we? We all have an
Absolutely.
ego. Uh, and like anything, any facet of our personality, I think there are positives and there are negatives to both. So it's swings and
Yeah.
roundabouts, dark and light. And I think the thing about an ego is the positive side of ego is that it helps you, I believe, um, ground who you are, and
Yes.
it helps you um, believe in your strengths and who you are and how you want to show up in the world.
Yeah.
So ego in and of itself is, I would argue, a positive thing. However,
Yeah.
when ego means that you think that somehow the talents and the brilliance that you possess makes you better than, more
Yeah.
valuable than, more important than another human being, that's when ego gets in the way. And we could probably have a whole conversation, a whole program on ego. But I feel that that's it in a nutshell. And as ever, when you are self aware enough to know the difference between when it's your ego talking and
Yeah.
being top dog and your heart, soul, gut talking,
Yeah.
uh, I think that's where you can, that's the differentiating point.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this is something that's so useful for people to be aware of, because I think I've had a number of discussions with clients recently around the fact that when we think of the word ego or egotistical, we usually, it's quite normal due to our conditioning to have a certain expectation of what that means. And for a lot of people, it's automatically a negative connotation, because they think of a certain archetypal person who is egotistical, um, when actually there's so much more to it than that. As you've said, there's the light and the shade. There's definitely positives. Your ego wants to promote you. It wants you to put yourself out there and do the things that you're good at, do the things that make you happy. There's lots of positive aspects. So it's as you've said, it's that self-awareness bit around that of learning. There's a real benefit in learning about ego and what it can do for you, and having the enough self-awareness to know when you're perhaps taking it too far and starting to think that you're better than, and the whole comparison thing with other people. So yeah, I think it's a fascinating topic.
I think we sometimes arrogance is often associated with ego, isn't it?
Yes.
And it isn't. It often goes hand in hand, but that's only if ego takes arrogance's hand, then they become a couple. But ego can choose not to be arrogant. You can still be. Your ego can be humble, and I think that makes a big difference, isn't it? And it's funny, I've had a number of conversations this week about that dark and light, and how we need to get rid of the dark. We need to solve it. We need to fix it. We need to make it disappear. And my argument is actually, no, we don't. We need to own. We need to own the dark, because without dark, you can't have the sparkle. Brilliance needs dark and light to really sparkle. You need both. So it's not about getting rid of the dark.
No.
It's about owning it, understanding it, and working with it so that it isn't detrimental.
Yeah, absolutely. Funny old thing, we're on the same page on this one, I think, Jenny.
No surprise there then, Rach.
Okay, so time for your first question for me then.
What I love about my first question is that it absolutely encapsulates our kind of strap line, is that we talk about anything, from what do we say?
Brilliant.
Socks to
self-belief.
Yeah, all of that. So mine is going back to the weather, because we're terribly British, so we'll go back to the weather. And my question is, what's your favourite thing to do when it's raining outside? It's easy to get a bit, isn't it? So what's your favourite thing to do when the weather is rainy, grey and miserable?
Right. Interesting. Now, there's a couple of different ways to answer that. And the first thing that comes to mind is that I'll caveat it with, as long as I'm prepared and protected against the weather, then going outside and jumping in some puddles with the kids would probably be my answer, because I think there's something wonderful about that. We've talked about ego, and obviously one of the ego states is kind of child ego, and it's bringing out that child, which I think is something perhaps quite a few of us don't do often enough. And so, yeah, I love the notion of bringing out the inner child, and that's something I've become much more comfortable with in recent years. If I'm walking the youngest to school, for example, and I don't know if it's raining and it's puddles, or if it's frost on the grass, any of those things where oh, did I disappear then? Sorry about that. I'm back. Then I think there's something wonderful about joining in with the childlike actions that come along with that. So if it's rain, it's jumping in the puddles. If it's frost, it's about tramping on the grass through the frost, and skipping along. Even if you think people might say you're an idiot, I don't care. Because if it's fun and if it's a time that's enjoyed together, then what could possibly be wrong with that?
That's lovely, isn't it? It's just, I agree with you, and it is such fun. I went to school in the Lake District, so there was plenty. I learned very early to make the most of the rain, and there is something incredibly freeing, isn't there? We used to have cloaks. We didn't used to have raincoats. We used to have big cloaks, like the Scottish widow. And your cloak was long enough to go over the top of your wellies, so because and the hood was really big. And we used to spend many times being out on the tennis courts. You couldn't play tennis because it was pouring down with rain, but you could actually, swing round and stamp in the puddles. So I think that's a great that's a great story, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I also love snuggling. It's a great opportunity to stay inside with a book.
Oh,
And
definitely.
I was talking with somebody the other day. It was a comment on LinkedIn actually, and they were saying that they didn't allow themselves to, snuggle down with a book until
Oh,
the
wow.
evening because they
Okay.
felt that was a waste of the day. Whereas actually, if it's raining and miserable outside, and you think, there's nothing better, is there, than a blanket and a good book,
Yeah, and a nice cup of tea.
a nice cup of tea. Yeah.
Fantastic. Love it. Okay, right. So next question. So my next question for you is, what are your top tips for managing your time effectively when you're busy? Because I know, we're both busy people, but I know, you in particular, you do a lot of traveling to do your work. And, that creates a lot of challenges, I imagine, in terms of managing your diary and managing your productivity. So what are your top tips for people around that?
Oh, that's really hard. I think um, a lot of people with my personality preference, whether it's my whether it's my aunt preference or my perceiving preference in Myers-Briggs terms,
Yeah,
means that I have a lot. I have a lot of things on my computer and diaries and things to keep me on track.
yeah,
The honest and absolutely vulnerable answer is I'm not great at it. So it's an ongoing slog for me.
yeah,
And I try really hard not to overbook myself.
yeah,
I try, but I don't often. I occasionally don't succeed at that. I have double book things. I'm also guilty, and I think maybe that maybe this will resonate with people. Um, I think I've got more time than I have. So what I have a tendency to do, and again, knowing that I do it means I kind of go, oh, are you putting too much in there? I think,
yeah,
oh, in my enthusiasm, I think I'm on my way from A to B. Oh, I could just pop in
yeah.
to do X, Y, and Z on my way. Excuse me, you can tell we're live recording, can't you? Because we won't edit that out. Excuse me. So my natural tendency is to squeeze extra things in. So my top tip, um, rather like agendas on meetings, is
Yeah,
to less is more. So actually, I really have to hold myself and go, no, I can't fit that in then. Um, you know, I tend to block my day into mornings and afternoons,
yeah,
and those are my big block. So, and then underneath that, I've got my appointments. So I have a paper diary, I have my phone, and I have my laptop. Um, but I hands up, honest Injun, and all that. It's an ongoing work in progress, and lots of technological support is, is required.
yeah, yeah. And that resonates very much for me. I'm very much the same. I will also hold my hand up and say that this is not one of the things I'm the best at either. Um, have always been a paper diary kind of person, but a couple of years ago, I bit the bullet and started using an online calendar, because it meant not only could people then book into my calendar, but I was able to take control of that calendar by putting, all the recurring events in that happen on a regular basis. That all goes in first, the commitments around the children, whatever it might be. And I'm less likely to double book myself, which is something you've just mentioned as well. In terms of, do I overbook myself though? Sometimes, yes. I do have a tendency to put more things in than is sensible. And, recently, I mean, in the last few years, I've become much, much better at having quite strict boundaries in terms of what I will say yes to. I say no a lot more than I ever used to, but, in a positive way. And I was signed up to do a charity bike ride in May with a lovely friend, Fiona Munro. Hello, if you're listening. Raising money for 3 wonderful female cancer charities, and it just it became obvious to us that we'd actually bitten off more than we could chew in terms of having time to put all the bike ride training in place before the actual ride, because as any cyclist will know, if you don't spend the time in the saddle, you'll know about it. You need to get the saddle ready. And so we had to take the difficult decision, which we didn't want to do, to defer it to next year's event instead. But actually, once we'd made that decision, the weight lifted, because, whilst it had seemed a good idea at the time when we booked it months and months ago, the reality was that it was just too much on top of all the other things that we were doing as well. So, my top tip, in line with what you're saying, really, is about try and be cognizant of how much you're actually booking into the diary. Just because it fits doesn't mean it's a good idea. So having those boundaries around what you're prepared to commit to is really important.
And I think you also make an additional really important point, Rachel, is not just the thing.
Yeah.
It's the preparation involved in getting ready for the thing.
Absolutely.
And quite often, I think also clients forget that when you're when they're booking you for a session, for example, most of us don't just rock up. There's all the prep, there's the reading around, there's the preparation, there's the practicing, there's the rehearsal, there's all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes to make it look easy when you're doing it. So it's remembering all of the other detail behind what goes on, isn't there? When you're doing things. So absolutely, clarity is kind, I think. Being really clear about what you need and when you need it is really important. Yeah.
Definitely. Okay, fabulous. So what's your next question for me?
Well, my next question is, what do you think are the top leadership development priorities for this year?
Ooh. Okay.
Do you want to repeat that? What do you think are the top leadership development priorities for 2024?
Okay. So
I'm asking.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm asking because Forbes have just released their report into this and a lot more. So I'm
interesting.
Curious,
okay, so I'm sure you'll
report.
I'm sure you'll have some feedback from that report then. So whilst I haven't seen the report, the immediate thing that springs to mind is about management of the new world that we're in, and people's priorities in terms of hybrid working, whether they want to be in the office. I actually heard an interesting term which has apparently become rather popular in the corporate world of late, where people who work Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday in the office, but they work from home Monday and Friday. I can't say it on air because it would constitute swearing, but if you think of the first letters of Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday, that spells a word beginning with TW, T on the end and an A in the middle. So those people are referred to as that
outrageous.
word. Very outrageous. But I think whilst that's an amusing take on the whole situation, actually there's a lot more serious implications underneath that, because the world has changed in terms of what people are prepared to do, and the expectations that any leadership people have, or people in leadership roles, that's got to be a big factor for them these days in terms of managing that. I think it would be interesting to compare as well the youngest people coming into the workforce and how they feel about that, compared to people who are perhaps 50 plus and have been in the workforce for a long period of time, and to see how their priorities are different. Would it be true to say that the younger people just now expect more flexibility because that's the world of work they're coming into? They've never known anything different, and I think managing that in terms of output and productivity, meeting people's expectations, looking after the needs of the individuals, I think that's actually quite complicated.
Absolutely right. And I think there are, so the top five,
Okay.
if out of the report, so I'm reading here, so this is um new or updated programs, learning and development programs, is top.
Yeah. Okay.
So whether that takes into consideration learning new skills about managing and leading, and working with new ways of working,
Yeah.
employee engagement.
Yeah.
I was really pleased that coaching was still a priority. So
Fantastic.
we it's that thing about, we know that coaching works when it's done proper, when it's done well.
Yeah.
We know it
Yeah.
works. Um, measuring and data has it's like the new top 10,
Okay.
and return on investment. So evidence of your investment
Okay.
is becoming increasingly important to people. And again, I think that many businesses don't measure, don't evaluate
Yeah.
evidence of impact. They do that kind of, they do the measurement of, did you like the course? How did you love your
Yeah.
e-learning? Um,
Yeah.
but they don't go on to the next levels of, what are you going to do differently as a result, and how will that impact the organization? So I think
Yeah.
there's a whole I I think we're ready for a workplace revolution, and we've talked about this before, haven't we? That
Yes.
we've been
Yeah.
rearranging the deck chairs a bit, um,
Yeah.
and a lot of corporate situations after COVID, um, kind of almost forgot all that they'd learned during COVID, and went
Yeah.
back to suddenly go, oh, you've all got to be back in the office. We need to go back to how it was. And it's
Yeah.
like, you can't go back, because people's experiences had changed so vastly
Yeah.
during the pandemic. Um, so I think there's a whole, the development priorities and the skills that we need to manage that workplace revolution, even if it's a quiet revolution. I'm not sure that
Yeah.
it needs to be quite so quiet, but I think it's a real opportunity for us to do things very, very differently, and stop just rearranging the deck chairs,
Yeah.
and sometimes you have to chuck them out and start again.
Yeah. Definitely makes a lot of sense. That's interesting. I might take a look at that. I hadn't seen it, so yeah, I'll take a look.
Oh, it's quite a juicy report. Yes.
Yeah, I bet. Okay, so my last question for you today are is even, where is it? There it is. Can you give an example of how changing language in self-talk to something more affirming can make a difference?
Yes, I
Oh,
think I can. So,
brilliant.
um, I've been reading a lot, just and I've worked with people who um, are have been the victims of body shaming,
Yeah.
and I think it's a very popular sport. And there's nothing more
Sadly, yes.
frustrating on social media, is there, that
Yeah.
when people ask you, they send you a friend request. So they are essentially a stranger. They send you a friend request, and immediately they then tell you that they can help you lose weight, or they can help you do this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
And it's really frustrating. So I have been all shapes and sizes during my journeys around the sun.
Yeah.
Um,
Likewise.
and and there have been moments where I have not loved myself,
Yeah.
or the shape that I'm in, and it's very easy to beat yourself up and
Yeah.
think that you are terrible, and uh, fed by the judgment of other people.
Yeah.
You have all of those things like, well, if you really wanted to lose weight, you'd do it. Fat people are just greedy. There's all sorts of really negative, horrible
Yeah.
societal kind of things that feed into all that language around there, isn't there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Feed into that kind of body shaming. And so there are I have definitely been in that situation where I have told myself, that I'm too fat, too ugly, couldn't possibly be out there in the world,
Yeah.
because people wouldn't hear what I had to say, because they
Yeah.
would be too busy concentrating on the size of my waist, or I don't know, my double chin, or whatever it is that they
Yes.
and that can be so paralyzing, and soul I would describe it as soul shriveling. It's just awful.
Yeah.
And so um when that kind of internal voice goes on, changing the language around, actually, this is who I am.
Yeah.
You know, there are wobbly bits. I have um I I have cesarean scars.
Yeah.
You know, um they're part of who I am. Um they aren't the total of who I am. And actually this body has kept me going. It's served me
Yeah.
well. It is who I am. And if I don't love it, how could I expect anybody else to? And
Absolutely. Yeah.
actually, if I love all of me, it goes back to that light and dark.
Very
Am I
much. Yeah.
as fit and slim as I'd like to be? No. Um, have I made it a priority? Probably not, because I've been doing other things. So
Yeah.
actually, it's that thing about, you do the best you can with what you've got. Um, you know, I'm healthy. I'm
Yeah.
sure there will be lots of people who listen to this and go, "Oh, but you could be a lot healthier." Yes, you're right. I'm not arguing
Yeah.
with you. Um, but I think that the language that we use around, and I'm certainly one of those people who, when I get messages like, "I could help you lose, 3 stone by doing, I don't know, whatever it is," it's like,
Yeah.
but I didn't ask you.
No.
And you didn't ask me if I needed your help. You just assumed. And that automatically, makes me kind of think, oh, because they don't know, they've taken no time to get to know me. So I think
Yeah.
anything that we do, and reclaiming brilliance, is so much more about
Yeah.
flipping that self-talk, so that actually you talk positively to yourself about
Yes.
yourself. And actually, as you said at the beginning, it's making friends with your ego in the best possible way,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, isn't it? It's the
Definitely.
nicest, kindest version of your ego. It's like, what are all the things that that you are proud of, that you can do, rather than all the things that you can't.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is something I've talked a lot with clients about recently, and quite often a good starting place is to do a brain dump onto paper, perhaps, of the things that you tell yourself, be they positive or negative, and start by just picking one of the negative ones and try and reframe that language. Now, one thing that came up in one conversation was someone defaulting to just saying, I am rubbish at XYZ. You know, that if it's something they're not good at, their default is just to say, well, I'm rubbish at that. And so, you know, an easy way to flip something like that is to say, well, I'm not skilled at that, but I can be, or I can learn,
Yeah,
or I'm not skilled at that yet. You know, adding the word yet on to the end of
love
something.
it.
Yeah.
Yet,
What
such a
what
great
a
word,
difference
isn't it?
what a difference it can make. But I think for a lot of people, it's the fact that it does take some conscious thought to, you know, and that this comes back to self-awareness, doesn't it? It's having those proactive thoughts about changing the language that you're using to say, okay, well, that's really negative language. How can I turn that into something a bit more positive? It might not instantly change how good or effective I am at that given thing, you know, in the example of I am rubbish at X, but it will make a difference to the way you view yourself and view it. And it's okay. It's that acceptance, isn't it? It's okay to say, well, okay, I'm not skilled in that, but that's okay too. You know, maybe that's something I need to pay someone else to do, because if it's not my thing, you know, get someone else to help. So yeah, I think there's lots of ways we can use affirming language instead.
I think one of the things to practice, and we can give this out as an invitation to people, is a great place to start is how you receive compliments.
Oh yes.
Um, because if you are in the habit of negative self-talk, it comes out really easily in compliments. So when somebody pays you a compliment, you bat it back
Yes.
immediately. So somebody says, oh, I love what you're wearing, and you go, oh, this old thing, I've had it in the wardrobe, right? And you talk yourself
Yeah.
down. So I think the thing is practicing both giving
Yeah.
and receiving compliments is our invitation. Your task, should you choose to accept it for the next
Oh,
2
love
weeks,
it.
tell us how you got on,
Yeah.
is to change the way that you receive compliments. If you find it uncomfortable when somebody tells you you're fabulous, then all you have to do is say thank you.
Yeah.
And just that
Yeah.
on its
And then
own
just
will start
that's it. Yeah.
to
Yeah.
change the language that those voices that in your head.
Yeah. Absolutely love that. Brilliant, brilliant advice. Thank you. Right. So Ginny, it's your last question for me then.
It is, and it's a cute one. I like this one.
Oh,
What do you most look forward to when the clocks go forward? Because it's coming, isn't it?
it is. It is. When the clocks
It
go
started in
forward.
America already. That they're on daytime saving already in America. My son's so that's what made me think of it.
Yeah.
So what do you
Okay.
most look forward to when the clocks go forward?
Oh, I mean, it has to be being lighter into the evenings. There's just something so nice as the weather gets a bit warmer and you can start sitting outside. I mean, obviously, you wouldn't want to sit outside today; it's grey and wet. But being able to sit outside into the evening, whether that's in your own garden, whether you're in a beer garden, whether you've gone to visit someone else, there's just something so nice about sitting outside, and it's so good for us to be outside, isn't it? To breathe in the fresh air, not always to be stuck inside with the heating on constantly, which is does bad things for your skin and dries you out and all the rest of it. So I just think that the opportunity to be outside more in when it just feels brighter and lighter is just lovely. I really do look forward to that. Definitely. I'm guessing you might be a bit
Yeah,
similar.
well, yeah, it's the early morning, so I'm an early bird. I
Yeah.
do get up quite early, but I do love it when it's getting up in the daylight as opposed to getting up
Yes.
in the dark. That
Yeah.
makes such a difference, doesn't it? And the other thing that I really look forward to is drying my washing outside.
Yeah.
I love line dried washing. Call me
Yeah.
old fashioned. I don't have a tumble dryer. So when it's winter and it's rainy like it is today, then it's drying washing can be a bit of a challenge. But
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love the smell of washing that's been dried in the fresh air outside.
Yeah, definitely. And I love how we defaulted, because we talked either in the last episode or the one before, I'm sure, about our favourite times of day, and how interesting that our answers absolutely reflected that, because you talked about being an early bird, and so getting up in the light is your favourite thing. I talked about being better later on, so my immediate thing was to say I like the lighter evenings. So yeah, we're nothing if not honest.
And creatures of habit, good habits, mostly.
Yeah, mostly. Yeah.
Mostly.
Fantastic. Well, that brings us to the end of today's show then. So if you are listening in, please do comment. You know how we always love to carry on the conversation. If you have any questions that you want to put to us for future episodes, please do get in touch. And like I said at the beginning, we've got some very exciting guests coming up. So we will announce more on that soon. But in the meantime, thank you very much for listening. And Jenny, I'm very much looking forward to seeing you in the flesh tomorrow. Well, today. By the time this is going out, it'll be today, won't it?
Yes, we will be. When you're listening to this, Rachel and I will be fully engaged in birthday celebrations, and we do love a celebration. So we're looking forward to that. And we will see you in a couple of weeks, where we will have a very exciting guest joining us, won't we?
Yes.
So we will keep you in suspense. Look out for more news about who that will be.
Fabulous. Right. Well, thank you for listening, and we will see you all soon. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.